The ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine is one of the world's most profound and enduring disputes. The conflict has escalated, resulting in over 3,000 deaths, thousands of injuries, and widespread displacement. The intensity of violence has increased with ground, sea, and air attacks against Israel by the extremist group Hamas. But when did the long-standing conflict begin? And what is it all about? The roots of the conflict can be traced back to what is known as the biblical era. But from a modern historical perspective, the late 1800s and early 1900s were pivotal. Between 1882 and 1948, thousands of Jews migrated to the region from around the world. In 1917, shortly before Britain's establishment of administrative power in Palestine, the Balfour Declaration was issued, declaring support for Palestine as a national home for the Jews. The Palestinians rejected the terms, and the area was placed under international administration and later became part of British rule. However, there was a strong push for a Jewish state. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition the disputed area into Arab and Jewish states, but the Arabs rejected the agreement, leading to war. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War resulted in the exodus of nearly 700,000 Palestinians from their homes, a large-scale displacement known as the Nakba, meaning catastrophe in Arabic. Israel gained control of most disputed territories, except for the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The West Bank was under Jordanian control, while Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip. In 1967, a six-day war ensued, and Israel gained control of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The Camp David Accords, signed in 1979, improved relations between Israel and its neighbors, but the question of Palestinian autonomy and self-determination persisted. After years of violent conflicts, both sides reached an agreement in 1993, establishing Palestinian self-rule in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The Oslo Accords created a Palestinian authority with limited autonomy in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. This was an interim agreement preceding a comprehensive peace treaty within 5 years, but it did not materialize. In 2000, a failed peace summit was hosted by the United States. A visit by Ariel Sharon, who was soon to become Israel's prime minister, to the Temple Mount in East Jerusalem was seen by Palestinians as a claim of Israeli sovereignty over the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, and a significant flashpoint for the Palestinians' Second Intifada, violent uprising. Over the next 5 years, nearly 3,000 Palestinians and 1,000 Israelis were killed, followed by many civilians being killed in suicide bombings. The consequences were profound. Israel withdrew from Gaza, and by the mid-2000s, Palestinian Sunni fundamentalist group Hamas, considered a terrorist organization by several countries, seized control of the coastal area. Fatah, a more central Palestinian faction, remained in control of the Palestinian Authority established in the West Bank. Hamas used Gaza as a launching pad for rocket or mortar attacks, leading to Israeli public opposition. Dr. Gili Maram, an international security expert at the University of Sydney, told the BBC, "It made the Israeli Jews more opposed to any kind of agreement with the Palestinians and even more hostile." The Israeli government imposed a blockade on Gaza, limiting the supply of food, water, and energy to its 1.8 million inhabitants. The living conditions of these Palestinians were likened to the world's largest open-air prison. Another significant loss from the Intifada was the closure of Gaza International Airport, which symbolized the dashed hopes of economic freedom for Palestinians and their only direct link to the outside world, not under Israeli or Egyptian control. It was opened in 1998, and Israel considered it a security threat. In September 2001, a few months after the attacks on the United States, its radar antenna and runway were destroyed. Another casualty was Gaza's fishing industry, a source of livelihood for tens of thousands of people. The Israeli authorities reduced the area for Gaza's fishing, a measure necessary to prevent the smuggling of weapons. Israel withdrew from Gaza, and in 2006, Hamas succeeded in the Palestinian Authority's parliamentary elections. Most of the international community cut aid to Hamas-controlled areas, as they considered Hamas a terrorist organization. Israel prevented tens of thousands of Palestinian workers from entering the country, cutting off a significant source of income. Israeli airstrikes destroyed Gaza's only power plant, resulting in a major blackout. Referring to the Israeli Defense Forces, Major Nir Dinar said, "They caught us off guard without preparation." He added, "They surprised us and came from many directions: air, land, and sea." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that his country was starting a long and difficult war and was determined to exact strong revenge. The Israeli cabinet approved the cutting of electricity, fuel, and supplies to the regions of Gaza, and Israeli airstrikes targeted residential blocks, tunnels, a mosque, and the homes of Hamas operatives, resulting in the deaths of dozens of people. Palestinian fighters transported scores of injured to Gaza, including military and civilians, children, and the elderly. Another Palestinian military group, Islamic Jihad, said it had more than 30 captives. The conflict between Hamas and Israel is the latest in a long-standing dispute. Hamas is a Palestinian military and political group that has been in power in the Gaza Strip since winning legislative elections there in 2006. Hamas's stated goal is the establishment of a Palestinian state, while denying the right of Israel's existence. Hamas, in essence, is nominated as a terrorist organization by countries including Australia, Canada, the UK, and the US. Some countries only designate its military wing as a terrorist group. The United Nations did not condemn Hamas as a complete terrorist organization due to insufficient support from member states during the 2018 voting. After Hamas attacks, the Australian government expressed support for Israel. Prime Minister Scott Morrison called Hamas's actions blind and hideous. Morrison said that Australia recognizes Israel's right to its own defense. In July, Australia issued a joint statement with Britain and Canada, demanding that Israel reverse the approval of more than 700 new settlement units in the West Bank and expressing that they were deeply concerned about the violence. This statement came after changes were made to the construction of settlements, which facilitated faster approvals, and the Australian government's use of the term occupied Palestinian territories strengthened the government's objection, and Palestinian groups in Australia welcomed it. Israel has become a formidable nuclear power by the mid-1980s and has been one of the world's strongest defense forces, thanks to American support. Maha Nassar, an assistant professor at the School of Middle Eastern and North African Studies at the University of Arizona, says that American support for Israel is a significant reason why resolving the conflict has become so challenging. She told the BBC, "The most powerful player involved, America, has consistently sided with Israel rather than the Palestinians and has pressured the Palestinians to give up their fundamental right to self-determination." She added, "They've done so in a variety of ways, particularly by offering the Palestinians a